Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. If you are new here, my name is Kirsten and we're going to be doing our September wrap up today. A little bit late, but better late than never. So I had a decent reading month in September. I did end up completing 8 books, 6 of which were off of my physical TBR. So the 6 books that I chose from my TBR trim video for September, I did complete all 6 of them. So I'm really proud of myself. We're doing really good so far. And then I did have 2 other books. They were library books, one of which I was reading with my alumni book club. So let's just go ahead and do a quick recap of these books and my thoughts on the reads. Okay, so the first book I read in September is We Were Liars by E. Lockhart, and this was for the prompt of a book with blue on the cover. So this was my pick, and I ended up rating this 3.5 stars. Okay, this book, the entire time I was reading this book, the thought in my head was, what on earth am I reading? This was interesting, to say the least. Yeah, first off, this is a young adult novel, and just off the bat, I don't vibe with YA very much. There are a couple fantasy series that are an exception to that, but for the most part, YA just doesn't do it for me, so I tend to not read it. However, I did want to read this one because I heard so much about it. Not necessarily great things, but intriguing things. So I wanted to see what this one was all about. I will say I really enjoyed the unique writing style of this book. I do really appreciate that I got to experience this type of writing style. Aside from that, it was okay. Yeah, I can't really expand on this one too much because I just didn't, yeah, it was just okay for me. I do think it is worth a read, and I do think that it was done really well in the style that it was. So if you want to pick up this one, I would give it a try, experience it for yourself, and see what you think of it. But yes, I did get this one read, so 3.5. The second book I read was The Color Purple by Alice Walker, and this book was for the prompt, a book with your favorite color on the cover, which clearly is purple. So purple's on the cover, purple's in the title. I was so proud of this pick for that prompt. But yeah, I gave this book a 4.5, guys. I had the best time with this book. I don't even know exactly what it was, but I was so invested from pretty much the first page. I was invested in the story. I was invested in the characters. And yeah, I had a great time. It's not the happiest, most uplifting book in the world. You know, it is in many ways sad and a little bit depressing and very real, very, very real. It does depict some very real and hard topics, but in that, I think it's a beautiful story of life and of love and loss and growth. So I really like this one. I can't believe it took me this long to get to it, but I'm already excited to do a reread. Yeah, I really enjoyed this. And as far as classics go, this one is really digestible. So if you're interested in picking up a classic, I would recommend this one highly as well. Very good read. Okay, the third book I read, I was so excited over, and I had the best time reading it, you guys. It is Jurassic Park by Michael Crichton, and this was for the prompt of a book over 400 pages. I'm a sci-fi girl. Like I love sci-fi, so this was right up my alley. And it's such a unique and unmatched world that Michael Crichton created. So I've seen the movies multiple times. I, however, was really interested in reading the books and get the detail and all the science bits and things like that. And actually, the book, this is one of the instances where the book is quite different from the movie, and I appreciate the book and its differences. The film adaptation was made for family and for children, so they had to dial back certain things. There were things that I did prefer in the movie, especially like the character of Lex, the little girl. I think her full name's Alexis. Maybe it's Alex. Either way, she goes by Lex. But the book, that girl, That girl, she got under my skin so much. She just has absolutely zero survival instinct. Zero. And in the movie, it's not that way. She's much more tolerable. So I did prefer the character of her in the movie better. However, I did prefer the ending, especially when it comes to Hammond in the book. I don't want to say any more than that because I don't want to spoil anything for you guys if you haven't read it, but I do prefer the ending, especially in regards to the character of Hammond in the book. I absolutely adore the character of Malcolm in the book as well, in the movie too, but just he's so funny. So, yeah, I had a fantastic time reading this, you guys. It was an experience that I think I needed, and I would highly recommend this book to any sci-fi lover out there, or if you like the movie, I highly recommend reading the book too. I think it's worth it to get the details. There is like a lot of science in the book, but I love that for me personally. So if you don't like that, maybe you won't appreciate it in the book, but I do still think it's worth the read. Did I say what I gave this book? I didn't say what I gave this book. I gave it a 4.25, and it's worthy of every one of those stars and the quarter. Yeah, I really had a fantastic time with this. Okay, the next book I read was a library book, and it's one that I had my eye on for quite some time, and it was Lessons in Chemistry by Bonnie Garmis. I had anticipated this book being a 5-star read just based off of the synopsis, and I was going to purchase it to have my own copy. I'm glad that I didn't purchase it. However, I did really, really like this book. I ended up giving it a 4.25. And I just have to say, the character of Elizabeth Zott, phenomenal, phenomenal. She makes the book, I mean, the book is about her. She is the protagonist, but just, she is such a, what's the word I'm looking for? She embodied so many different like character traits that I found so endearing. She's a very endearing character to me. So I really enjoyed reading about her and how she just really navigated her life in her purest form. So I thought the book was really good. I really don't have any critiques for it. It wasn't a 5-star because I just didn't get that 5-star feeling, but I had a fantastic time reading it, and I do think it's worth a read. I think it's a highly important novel. I think it really does such a good job at discussing in depth the hardships of women in the 60s and how they just weren't taken seriously. So I enjoyed myself with this one. And if you haven't read it yet and it's on your list, I would say go for it. I loved it. I loved it. The next book I read was the book that I read with my alumni book club, and this one was The Library of Legends by Janny Chang. I didn't actually have much interest in reading this book at first because we do a poll to vote on our reads, and I don't believe I chose this one. So this book I did give a 3-star. This book is part historical fiction, part fantasy. So the Library of Legends follows a convoy of students that are fleeing from their university in China during the Chinese Civil War. They are also, however, tasked with safeguarding these collections of myths and legends that are called the Library of Legends. So they're meant to protect these at all costs during this journey to safety. So I really liked learning more about the Chinese Civil War. I don't think it's something that is talked about often or that I've personally read about a lot. So I really enjoyed hearing about the very real struggles of the population. And there actually were many universities during the wartime did have to flee and were refugees. So the historical fiction aspect of it, I really liked. The fantasy element with the Library of Legends, I also found extremely intriguing. My issue with this book, however, is that the historical fiction and the fantasy elements of it felt very exclusive to one another, and they didn't really ever come together in a cohesive way to me. I felt like this book wasn't fully fleshed out properly. I think if it leaned either more to the fantasy side of things or more to the historical fiction side of things, which I would have preferred historical fiction side of things, then it would have been a better read. So that is why I gave it 3 stars. I am happy that I did read it. I love historical fiction on all topics. So hearing about, any topic that I don't have a vast amount of knowledge of is always a wonderful experience. So I am happy that I read it, but it wasn't a favorite read. The next book I read was The Hate You Give by Angie Thomas. And this book was for the prompt of a book with at least a 4-star rating on Goodreads. And this one has a 4.45 rating on Goodreads. Really high. So I ended up giving this book a solid 4-star. I did enjoy it. It was a good read. Again, though, this is a young adult novel, and I can't reiterate, you guys, that just YA we do not mesh well together. So even though I think this book was really important, it's fantastic, I think that this could resonate with a lot of younger people. I think this could resonate with anybody. I really do like that the way that it was written is from the point of a young teenage girl who's navigating life and who's having firsthand experience with social injustices. So I really like that aspect of the book. I think that it's a lot more impactful the way that it was written from Star, the character's name is Star, from her point of view and her experience. And I originally wanted to read this book because my younger sister, who's in high school, had this as required reading, and I definitely can see why it was required reading for her. I think it was a very well done work regarding racism and police violence. So yeah, I gave it a solid 4-star. If I give it any flack, it's just because it's a young adult novel, so I always have a disconnect with YA, it seems. So that was again present in this one, but I do recommend this book. It was fantastic. The next book I read was The Women by Kristen Hanna, and this was for the prompt of a historical fiction. I've read quite a few of Kristen Hanna books as of right now, and I was really looking forward to this one. I have some thoughts about this one. I did end up giving it a 4-star, but I still got some things to say. Okay, should we start with the good or the bad? Let's start with the good. I really appreciate the way that Kristen Hanna highlights women in her novels. They all highlight the roles that women played, usually during wartime. What I love about this one, not only does it highlight women, it highlights nurses during war. And I think we don't hear enough about, they might not have been on the front lines, they weren't soldiers fighting the war, but they were so vital to the war effort. And to have that depicted, I think is so important. I really loved hearing about what a nurse would have experienced during wartime. I also really love that this book follows the Vietnam War, because again, I don't think that's a topic in time that's discussed enough, and for good reason, but I do think it's important to shine a light on that history. So love that as well. And another thing that is so important that I really liked in this book is that it talks about PTSD. In a lot of these historical fiction books, we hear about the heroic acts that these characters play during wartime, but we never really hear much about the aftermath. And this is something that is so very real, PTSD. And I think it's not understood enough. So I think having a really detailed look into what that might be like and feel like, and how it can affect your life and just your person, is so important. And I'm so glad that that was a highlight of this novel. So those were some of the main takeaways I got from this book. Now to the cons. Okay, I don't know if this is just me. I don't know if maybe I was having an off week, which can happen. I'm not sure, maybe it wasn't the right time for me to read this book, But this one did not read like a Kristen Hanna to me. And I struggled to just be connected to this book. I struggled to really get absorbed into the world and stay locked in. So I don't know what that was. I've had this experience with other Kristen Hanna books where I struggle in the beginning, like the first 100 pages or so, to kind of be really invested, but then I'm fine. I'm fine after. And this one, I struggled to be invested throughout the duration of the read. So that wasn't the best. I just felt like the Kristen Hanna element was missing, the one that really captivates me a lot of the time. So maybe that's just me. I would like to hear your thoughts if you've read this book, if you maybe felt the same. The other thing was, I really would have appreciated like a glossary of all the abbreviations and terms of slang and stuff like that, because I was lost so many times when they were using certain terms. So I felt it would have been helpful to have like a glossary to kind of go back and see, what does this mean? But maybe again, that might just be me. That is my other qualm with the book, if you will. Other than that, I had a great time, and like I said, this was a solid 4 stars. And the last book I read in September was for the reading prompt of an in-season book. So I chose and read Salem's Lot by Stephen King. I had a really good time reading this book. Now, when this started off, this probably would have been like a 4.25 read for me. Probably about 3/4 of the way in, I changed my tune a little bit, and I'll tell you why, but I did end up giving this a 4-star. This was just a perfect segue into October. This was the last book I read in September, and I'm so happy that I did that. I also was really in the mood for a Stephen King novel. With that being said, I loved all the elements of this book. I really did. What I started to struggle with is that I feel like there were so many different branches that this book could have took directionally, and it didn't take the ones that I felt I wanted to hear more about. For me, I felt like there was a lot of stuff that just wasn't wrapped up nicely that I would have liked to have been. So again, maybe that's just me. I did, however, do some research after, and from what I understood, Stephen King was fairly young when he wrote this novel. He was in his mid-20s, I believe. So he wasn't as seasoned as he is in some of his other works. So I think maybe that's why I felt like the book was a little bit, it lacked a bit of direction, but there's no negating that this is a Stephen King novel. You can definitely tell that his style and his rhetoric are present in this book, and that's what I really loved. I really enjoyed. I loved the gothic elements. I loved the references to Dracula, and I just read Dracula not too long ago, so I'm so happy that I got to it first before reading this book, because I understood a lot of the references that were made. And yeah, I had a good time. I was creeped out. I was rooting for certain characters. The ending is quite ambiguous, but I enjoyed the ending considering the direction the book ended up taking. Again, I would have liked to have heard a little bit more about certain characters and just certain things that this town went through, but yeah, although this might have not gone the way I thought it was going to, the important thing is that I had a fantastic time reading this. And it's another Stephen King that I have knocked off my belt. So I was really happy with this read. So, you guys, those were the 8 books that I read in September. I'm so thankful. I got 6 more cleared off of my physical TBR. We are slowly but surely getting our physical books read. But yes, that does it for this video, you guys. I really hope you guys had a fantastic reading month in September and that your October reading is going so great so far. If you've read any of these books, let me know what your thoughts are on them in the comments below. I'd love to hear your opinions. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Please don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and I will see you in my next one. Bye!